on the treadmill. We're going to welcome our guest, Melissa Bowersock. She has written an outstanding book, Marcia, The Angel of Bataan, and we are so happy to have her with us today on the air. Melissa, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself for our readers who may not be aware of you or your book?
Well, thank you very much for having me on. I'm actually primarily a novelist. I've got 9 novels out, and this book about my aunt was the first time I had ever written nonfiction. So it was a real challenge for me to switch gears and not just invent whatever I wanted to, but to go by the facts and present the story as it actually happened. So it was an interesting experience for me.
That must have been fascinating, but yet it must have created so many questions, and I'll bet that you were compelled to keep on digging and keep on digging and keep on digging. Did you find that you had so much information, or did you find the information difficult to assemble?
You know, I did not have near as much information as I wanted. The problem is my aunt and all of her generation are gone. So I had no one to ask about this. But when I started doing my research, I found out that the Wisconsin Historical Society, Wisconsin's where my aunt was from, had in their possession 2 scrapbooks that were made by my grandmother while my aunt was in the service. And I was able to download PDF files of both of these scrapbooks, and they turned out just to be a treasure trove because my grandmother kept every letter, every telegram. She had photos. She had every single newspaper clipping that had anything to do with it and all kinds of memorabilia. And it was like a time capsule. So with that, you know, that was the basis for the book. And I could actually go step by step, what happened, who wrote what letter on what day. And it was marvelous.
Wow.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, it was. And once I got to reading this stuff, there's even a letter in there from President Roosevelt on White House stationery. And once I got to reading all this and really understanding the details, I thought, I have to write this story because otherwise it's just going to sit in a drawer and nobody's ever going to know about it.
My first thought about this book, I had so many thoughts as I went through it. The first thought, as I kind of alluded to it at the beginning, was the lack of communication and how your grandmother must have ached every day not knowing what was happening to her daughter. I don't think young people today, and that was my second thought, was your book is such a wonderful vehicle for young people to know what people experienced in that era. The lack of knowledge and the lack of knowing. And she went everywhere, Red Cross. She went to every department that she possibly could. Your grandmother must have been a very strong and determined woman.
She definitely was, and you can tell that by what she does in the book. I mean, she was not going to sit on her hands and wait for somebody to tell her something. She was going out and knocking on doors and ringing doorbells and just drumming up anybody that she could that might be able to help her get the information. And in that day, in the 40s, I think she was unusual in that she was not a wallflower. But this is actually the story of my family, which is very strong women. And another thing that strikes me when you talk about the contrast between then and now is that nowadays we think it's a tragedy if we don't have enough bars on our phone and we drop a call. Or we think it's a tragedy if it takes a web page longer than 5 seconds to load. And then when you read about my aunt and the hardship that she went through, you realize how fortunate we are. I mean, to have things just at our fingertips. And the things that she went through and the things that she persevered through, it's a pretty amazing story.
Melissa, how do you translate that into military advice for today? I mean, I get that, obviously we need to be more patient. We live in an instant society. But, you talk about the knocking on doors, and both Robin and I get a lot of requests from the public for information. Can we help them with this? Can we find them that? What is your advice today for military families after you wrote this book? What did you come away with?
I guess the lesson is don't take no for an answer, and keep at it. And if you run into a dead end here, then go a different direction and try something else, because somebody somewhere has to know something. But unless they know you're looking for the information, they may not know how to get it to you. So I think that's what I would say is don't give up and just keep asking. Keep asking. That's
amazing in that I think so many times a parent would need this information and being able to have, I guess, the same as when you go to the doctor. The doctor says X, this is my answer, and you walk away and you say, okay, he's the doctor, I should believe him. And the same thing is you'll get a directive from whatever department and you think, okay, this is the government telling me this, I guess I should listen to it. And I love your family's approach is that, no, I don't have to settle for this. I need to get more information, and I'm not going to be satisfied until I do. What do you think was one of the most enjoyable thing about putting this book together? Because I'm sure you were compelled with details to make sure that you put as much detail and factual information. But where was your joy? What was the most joyful thing for you? I think the most joyful thing is just putting the story out there. Actually, when I wrote it, I honestly did not think, I wasn't writing it to be a commercial success. I really actually didn't care about that. I just wanted her story set down, and I wanted it out there where it would be available. But I honestly didn't think that I would sell more than 2 or 3 copies to family, and the interest that this book has generated has been phenomenal, and that's been wonderful for me to know that her story touches people and that it's relevant, as you're saying, that it's relevant to people today. So that has been a great joy and very surprising to me. Because I actually did not expect that. I just figured I was going to write it, put it out there, and see what happened. And so the response has been wonderful. Oh. In the last few minutes that we have, Melissa, I would like the listeners to know in 2004 what Wisconsin State Department of Veterans Affairs did in honor of Marcia Gates.
Oh, yeah, they built a new wing at the Veterans Center, and they dedicated the hall to my aunt. And I understand that there were quite a few honorees in the running, and they chose her, which to me is a great honor. So it's a veterans home for older vets, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called Gates Hall. Matter of fact, it makes me cry just talking about it.
Well, I got to say I'm kind of tearing up here too, Melissa, because I think that is a true testament not only to Marcia, but also to you for bringing her story to light, because I think that this is an incredible honor. And the plaque says, in honor of Marcia Gates, Army nurse who provided compassionate care and selflessness service to fellow servicemen and women while held captive in the Philippines during World War II. And boy, that's very minimally put. After reading the book, you know exactly the courageous efforts and amazing work that she did while she was there. How how much were you able to enjoy her after she came home? I just don't have the dates quite in my head, but how long did you have to have her with you after she came home?
You know what, to tell you the truth, my parents moved to California, and so I grew up in California, and I actually did not see my aunt very often. I think I might have seen her a handful of times after the war, and she died in 1970, again, back in Wisconsin.
Sure.
So I did not have a lot of time with her, and at the time, of course, growing up as a kid, I didn't think much about it. Now, of course, I would give anything to be able to sit down and have a conversation with her.
Well, I think the conversations are in your heart with her because she certainly did leave a lot of documentation. Your grandmother was a saint in pulling all of this together, and I encourage everybody to pick up this book and read it. They can find the book at newmoonrising.net, and that's NEWMOONRISING.net. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Stay